90 minutes later, the limo arrived outside of the headquarters. Jane noticed that there was also a US Marshals and FBI van parked outside. What was this all about? Jane couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. No matter how many times she asked the agents, it was always the same. That information is classified. Jane wanted answers. She wanted to know what was going on. Once inside, Jane was greeted by a refreshing cold breeze that seemed to be coming from the central air units. It was the hottest day ever. Jane was led to a room that looks like a police interrogation area. There inside was another male agent. Jane sat.
Welcome, Jane. We've been expecting you,
the agent said.
You mind telling me what the hell is going on?
Jane asked, very suspiciously.
Not at all. First off, I just want to say I'm sorry for the loss of your parents.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for the loss of your parents.
I know how much you loved them. I take it you heard that the LAPD have been having a difficult time pursuing your parents' assailant, Jeffrey Woods.
Jeff the killer?
Exactly. We also got in touch with FBI, US Department of Justice and the US Marshals, and they're all going to see to it that Jeff is stopped once and for all.
But what does this have to do with me, aside from the obvious connection?
After receiving word of your blood transferal at Biomedics, it is apparent that you are the perfect blood time. And maybe the key to stopping Jeffrey Woods.
We're in the perfect blood timeline, guys.
Yeah, like that's what. Yeah, we talked about the tour. That's why, because you can see, watch, Breaking Bad before it comes out, because blood time.
Bullet time.
No, bullet time is clockwork.
I see.
So let me get this straight.
Jane said, trying to piece together what the agent said.
After I give my blood, you and those other agency guys want to use me to stop that son of a bitch, Jeff?
Yes, ma'am. All you have to do is meet with our doctors.
I don't think... Wait, she's right, though. How did she infer that just from your blood might be the key to stopping Jeffrey Woods? It's like, so you want me to stop him? I'm like, no, just your blood. Just meet up with doctors?
Jane asked.
Yes, ma'am.
The agent replied.
And then I'm free to go?
In due time, I promise you.
Well, okay.
After she was led into a room, one doctor did an eye scan of her ice blue eye after giving her a vision test, reading an eye chart, etc. The scan of her pretty blue eye was stored in her computer. The next doctor to examine her was a cardiologist. Following a few brief questions such as her date of birth, weight, height, that sort of thing, Jane had her blood pressure checked, which was 120/80, the normal blood pressure for a healthy young lady.
Very good.
The cardiologist said he checked her heartbeat and asked her to breath when using his stethoscope. The cardiologist wrote down everything. Next, a general practitioner was to examine Jane, scanning her eyes, ears, throats, testing her reflexes, you name it. Jane passed with flying colours. Jane thought she was going to leave this building with no problem and be on her way. When she was led down a hallway by two guards, she noticed one of the rooms, stretchers lined with blankets covering the bodies. A total of 25 people. All young women, dead. If there were blankets covering the bodies, how do you know they were women? Oh wait, I've just realised. What was going on here? She started to get freaked out at the sight of the lifeless women who haven't been disposed of, and anxiously asked the guards where they were taking her. They refused to answer. So, out of instinct, she began to assault the guards, incapacitating one of them.
It's because she fucking did. Of course, the girl who works at IHOP could take on guards who work at a fucking CAI black site.
Dude, they should have seen this coming, right? They tested her reflexes earlier, so you know when they did the hammer that gave on the knee, what she did, she actually fucking deflected it.
Yeah, she flash kicked the doctor. That's what.
Her fighting skills she learned from Mary's father, Sheriff Nick, really paid off.
Well, she did learn from a sheriff, and as we all know, sheriffs are the ultimate paragons of toughness. So there's no way someone who is trained by the CIA could possibly fight someone trained by a town sheriff.
And has all the training of a waitress at IHOP.
Wow, it's almost like this is stupid.
Yeah, like, but no, Jacob, it makes logical sense, because how many times have you seen a sheriff in the movie kill a bunch of people, and how many times have you seen a CIA agent? They're always the ones who get killed, and sheriffs always win, so therefore movie logic.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't think you're seeing chefs.
That would have been better!
Chef Nick!
Well, she did make a syrup, so she's got both sheriff and chef training.
Yeah, so like she reaches into her handbag, pulls out a frying pan, squirts the first gun in the face with the syrup she always has on her. It's like in a gun holster, but it's a bottle of syrup.
In the midst of the brutal melee, Jane was tackled and sedated by one of the doctors. Her world began to blur and fade.
Not even when the guards got her, it was a doctor.
I know. Black.
And then it says Jane groaning, because apparently we're back in screenplay land. Where am I? Jane asked, coming to. She was strapped to a chair, similar to what you'd see in a dentist's office. Around her, the room looked like an operating theatre, bathed in a bright white light which gave the room a clean appearance. Jane couldn't see anybody because all that was in the room with her, facing towards her, was a two-way mirror. She felt something on her forehead that was similar to a headband, but saw electrodes and wires running away from her. Her hands and feet were secured in place. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't break free. A few seconds later, she heard an unknown female voice on the intercom. It must have been that of an agent, researcher, or scientist. Toby?
Miss Richardson, can you hear me?
The voice asked, almost sympathetically. Who's there?
It's me, Dr. Beth Williams from Biomedics. I didn't want to have you find out the hard way, but some of these agents and government officials tell me you have a very healthy blood type. And from what I could gather, they were correct. If you are wondering...
Wait, you weren't you the doctor? I just said I was a doctor. Yeah, the CIA agents were better doctors than me.
If you are wondering, it was me who sedated you. It was me all along. I did not strike you into the room which you are in, dear, I can assure you. I will be standing by to monitor your vitals, though, through this process.
Dr. Williams said. What are you talking about?
Jane!
Agent Margolis said.
We brought you here because you are the perfect blood type. You are like Cell at this point. And also the candidate for the following experiment that's been funded by the US government, totaling in at $6.9 million. We have received word from the LAPD that they have had trouble in capturing the suspect responsible for the death of your parents, Bruce and Paula.
I don't know why. There was something about Toby going, and Paula.
Sound like Smash characters. Bruce and Paula! And we, along with the FBI, Department of Justice, and the US Marshals, agreed to help in the capture of Jeffrey Woods. If you haven't noticed, there is an intravenous needle in your arm. One of the scientists will be bringing in the serum to replace with your blood.
An intravenous needle.
Also, bringing in the serum to replace with your blood. So, do you mean... So, I assume you mean to replace my blood, because otherwise you're going to bring in a serum which you don't need anymore because you've got my blood, if you say replace with. But also, how's that going to work? You can take all my blood away and just put serum in there.
Okay, I want to try... Okay, so... I think we've all figured out what the plot is, but I want. Okay, so what I think is the plot is they're having such trouble with like the FBI, CIA, Marshals Department, and Department of Justice are all having trouble capturing a single 13-year-old boy that they've spent nearly $7 million and killed at least 25 women in order to create a super soldier to catch this one boy. I think that's the plot.
It's a bit stupid, isn't it?
This serum is classified, but it will ultimately help you in getting revenge on the ones who took your parents' lives.
Or we could just use the highly trained personnel we have. One department to arrest the 13-year-old.
This is awful.
Mm-hmm. Just then, a scientist and doctor came into the room, prepping Jane. The scientist came in with liquid hate.
What?
Liquid...
The scientist came in with the liquid hate. No, it's not Gemma. It's written there on the screen.
I'm pretty sure liquid hate's like it's a Japanese sort of brandy. Ah, liquid hate.
That's just fucking golf clap time, guys. That is fucking... They've done it. They've officially made this one of the fucking worst again, haven't they? What? Liquid hate? Seriously? The fucking best name you could have come up with.
I like that liquid hate is the official name. It's not even like the author is describing the serum. Liquid hate is capitalized, meaning it's the official name of the serum.
The container was 1.25 gallons with a biohazard with a biohazard symbol on it. The light from overhead casted in the liquid, giving off a pretty glowing purple. The doctor who came in was there to make sure everything was ready and to monitor Jane's safety. He assured her she had nothing to be afraid of and that she was going to be okay afterwards.
The glowing purple drank that's got a biohazard sign on it.
Oh dear, this isn't very good. This made Jane feel somewhat better.
She's so fucking stupid.
A part of her was scared to death, but the other half of her showed no fear and she was ready. The doctor put the intravenous tube in Jane's arm. The one tube ran into a container that would collect Jane's blood and shipped to the American Red Cross for patients who had the same blood type as Jane and to receive a healthy blood transfusion.
Where is this going?
The other tube was attached to the container holding the liquid hate. So in a way, this was just like an embalming fluid prep setup, but with an experimental liquid.
No, it wasn't.
Despite being reassured by medical personnel that she had nothing to be scared of, a single tear ran down her face.
The process began. The voices that Jane heard, the scientists, the government officials, FBI, CIA, US Marshals, researchers, began to sound distant. If something were to happen to her, she would see her deceased parents.
What?
On the other side...
All these people in the room at the same time. Did you need all 4 departments?
On the other side of the two-way mirror, doctors were monitoring Jane's vitals, her heart and brainwaves, etc. Her heart was beating at a steady pace, showing the EKG beeping, the readings of the EEG showing normal brain activity. Jane saw her blood being drained slowly. This didn't bother her at first, but as it began to increase, she felt very weak and drowsy, almost like she was being smothered by an unknown person with an ether-soaked rag. And in the next few minutes, Jane's surroundings began to disappear. First into a state of unconsciousness and weakness from loss of blood in her body, then dead. The heart monitor in the other room flatlined. The EEG went flat. For that moment, Jane was clinically dead. God, I don't care.
Jane felt a gentle familiar hand on her face, caressing her. It was her mother. Paula! She opened her eyes, and despite being deceased for over a few minutes, she was still in the room. Her father, Bruce, was there as well.
Mom!
Don't be afraid, Janie. Mummy's here. Paula cooed sweetly. She saw Jane's eyes welling up with tears and held her daughter in her arms tightly, comforting her.
Daddy!
Bruce gave Jane a kiss on her head as he joined in to hold his child as well. Jane was weeping as she was glad to see her parents.
You're gonna be okay, kiddo. You're gonna be just fine.
Oh, so her dad was the guy who looks like Walter White from the Pancake Place.
I wanted to do the voice again.
Understandable.
Bruce said softly, calming his daughter down. He was in full military dress, his medals shining in the light of the room Jane was in. His uniform was crisply pressed, his short hair shiny and brushed back, almost as if he was going to attend a military ball.
Mommy, what's going on?
Jane asked in a childlike tone. Well, since those doctors emptied your body, you went out like a light. But me and Daddy are going to stay here until you come alive, honey, Paula said in a soft-spoken voice, her words soothing Jane's heart.
One thing I could never stand about IV needles is when someone can't find a vein to put it in. That happened to me when I was a little kid and I suffered sepsis and I felt like frickin' Swiss cheese. That old hag couldn't put the needle in right. You should have known that having experience as a doctor and a PhD doesn't come with vision.
Bruce said, smiling, laughing. This made Jane smile and giggle as she laughed with her daddy. She knew for
Jane
the
had an
longest
awful
time.
sense of humour.
Yeah, she knew for the longest time that her daddy was still, oh god, very silly, and made her laugh without even trying, and was still a goofball in the afterlife. That was also what Paula loved about her
Born
husband.
of science.
Born of science indeed. Jane's parents stayed until the liquid hate was
Fucking
administered.
hell.
I can't
It doesn't stop being funny.
My eyes just keep scrolling over to the Paul Pot and like, maybe just read up on Paul Pot a little
I
bit.
know,
Maybe
it's
that'd be a
just
little bit more
there.
interesting.
It's just there. His fucking smug cuntish face is just there, staring at me. Your father couldn't stand needles being poked at him at all, honey. But
He was a big fan of Paul Pot, though.
but getting like an allergy shot or a vaccine, that didn't bother him. It was an intravenous needle that got on his nerves. Even when he was little, he fainted at the sight of a big noodle. Paula
Big
said.
noodle!
Paula
You all
said,
heard it, right? You all heard noodle.
Oh, fuck, I said needle. Fuck. No, I have not done it again. Fuck.
Hey, that thing was big!
Bruce replied comically.
I know I'm gonna feel sore and stiff when I get up.
Considering the chair you're in, I wouldn't be surprised, honey. Paula replied.
Gemma's left the room, so,
Good on her.
I think tonight you should take a nice hot bath with some Epsom salts.
Bruce said from World War One, caressing Jane's hair.
Good idea.
Jane replied. You just remember one thing, my little Janey baby. If you ever need me or Daddy, we will be right here. Paula said, pointing to Jane's heart. Don't do that fucking E.T. shit to me.
And we will come live in your dreams, sweetheart.
We're so proud of you. Jessie's lucky to have such a sweet sister. We will always be watching over you, love. Paula said sweetly.
We love you, Jane.
Bruce said, oh, the purple stuff is about finished.
Wait,
Paula-
so in the old Sunny Delight commercial, was it liquid hate in the fridge?
They made a mistake of drinking Sunny D instead of liquid hate.
Paula said, pointing to the liquid hate that was halfway empty. I'm not going to go over it.
I love you, Mommy. I love you, Daddy.
Jane said, giving her parents a hug before they returned to heaven.
Born of
Born of
science.
science, yes, born of science, returns to heaven, born of science.
I think the only scientific thing that's ever happened in this entire story so far is the syrup.
We love you too, Janie. Paula replied, giving her daughter one final kiss goodbye.
Jane slowly regained consciousness and came to. The EKG and EEG roared back to life, showing heart and brain activity. Brain activity is not something this author really ought to be writing about. Her vitals appearing normal. As her vision adjusted, she saw she was still in the operating theatre. When she looked down, she noticed her hands were now ivory white. She was pale, like a corpse. She screamed over the loss of her natural skin pigmentation.
I thought she'd be super happy to be that white.
Oh yeah, because I forgot we made her racist, didn't we? And saw that her once bright platinum blonde hair was now coal black. She tried to break free from the restraints, thinking that she would fail, but somehow, with now increased strength, ripped both of the restraints off and jerked the wires off her head. She tore the leg restraints away and got up out of the chair. She looked towards the two-way mirror, now in a violent, angry, homicidal rage. Hollered, what the hell did you do to me?
She's going to experience violent episodes and homicidal tendencies for the first 90 seconds.
They're just like, she's had a lot of painkillers. One of the scientists said to the group,
You are now full of liquid hate, Mitch Richardson.
liquid hate. Agent Margot said, I look like fucking powder.
That's because your natural skin color, went away, Jane.
Jane picked up a chair that was in the room and threw it against the two-way mirror, shattering the glass. She grabbed a hold of one of the doctors who were monitoring her vitals by the collar, slamming him against the wall with incredible strength, causing a huge dent. One of the scientists sounded an alarm for armed guards and medical personnel to restrain Jane.
Yeah, but we already know that the armed guards here are shit because she's trained by a sheriff.
One pulled out a syringe, trying to aim for Jane's neck, but Jane took the needle and stabbed the doctor between the eyes and injected an air bubble into him. 2 guards with automatic weapons tried to fire at Jane, but she grabbed both of their arms, causing them to fire at each other. Terrifying. I'm so glad this scene is in a horror story. One agent fired at Jane, but the bullet didn't faze her a bit. The wound automatically and quickly healed up. I remember who can forget this part of the Jane the Killer lore? Her T-1000 like healing abilities. She approached the agent, who was still firing multiple shots at Jane, and snapped his wrist into. I know what you mean into, but you've written the word into. So I feel like there should be snapped his wrist into pieces, but no, just into. Showing fractured bones and blood spurting everywhere. An orderly standing in at 6'5" and 300 pounds tackled Jane, attempting to subdue her. It was Vince 12. But Jane had the upper hand, flipped him over on his side, and snapped him neck into.
So more proof that she's racist. She just killed Vince 12.
It's just the same problems just coming up over and over again.
But like, snapped him neck into.
Snapped him neck into.
Again, I mean, it's an easy joke, but it's an easy joke, but you're talking about brain activity and you're writing things like that. Just as carnage continued, Jane took the now empty liquid hate container, it's no longer capitalized, broke it against the ground, took a sharp glass shard, and stabbed to death one of the agents. Her clothes now stained with blood, amidst the dead, broken, mutilated, bullet-riddled bodies of those who were out cold. Jane, that's not what out cold means. Jane looked at the group who was in the room, that now had no mirror, and said in an ominous tone, "Thank you for saving me. Thank you for making me what I am. I now know what I must do. I must kill Jeffrey Woods and end his reign of terror forever. If he is not killed, more lives will be lost. I am much stronger now. I am unstoppable, unkillable. Weapons are useless against me. Anyone who dares crosses me." No one corrected her on her grammar. They were too frightened. "I will be the last thing they will ever see. I will kill Jeff the Killer, and no one can stop me." We did this so you would kill Jeff the Killer. That was the CIA's plan. No one's going to try and stop you from implementing the CIA's plan.
In fact, this is all point. Like we were actually going to give you a big cake and a pat on the back and a big hat to celebrate this, but then you fucking ruined it.
The only thing that's changed is that your mission to kill Jeff the Killer no longer has government funding. That is all that's changed. After 90 seconds, Jane's homicidal tendencies ceased, and
They planned on making her a super soldier to kill Jeff the Killer, so they did no preparation for her waking up and being pissed.
After 90 seconds, Jane's homicidal tendencies ceased, and she was acting normal again. The same doctors who were examining her wanted to do x-rays, MRI scans, and the final examination on her. Jane stood naked as the day she was born, as physicians didn't see any abnormal changes, no defects. She was even more beautiful, despite the fact she was pale white with black... Shut the fuck up.
Okay,
I don't think so, Gemma.
Oh.
Okay, Miss Richards. I want you to read what is on this chart right here. An eye doctor said. EFPTOZLPEDPEDFCZ. It goes on for a while. Printed by Century City Up. It goes on for a while. The eye doctor was flabbergasted that Jane read everything down to the fine print. He took a magnifying glass and saw the address and company name at the bottom of the eye test chart. Wow, he said, dumbfounded. "So, Doc, are there any other tests? Or can I just walk out of here and be on my way?" Well, are you going to give me another visual test or stand there and stare at me all day? I'm just going to stand here and stare at you all day, the doctor said, seeing Jane fully naked. This got fucking weird.
What the fuck is this turned into? Why?
I'll take that as a "you are free to go." Jane took her blood-stained clothes. We're so close to the right. Okay, last paragraph and bit of dialogue. Jane took her blood-stained clothes that were in a hospital bag and walked out fully nude, not caring that people are looking at her. On her way home, she saw clothes that were hanging out to dry on a clothesline outside a little suburban home. These clothes matched her frame. They were a pair of black sweatpants, a sleeveless black underarm shirt, a sleeveless black Under Armour shirt, and a black hoodie. They all smelled sweet as she pulled them off the clothesline and got dressed in broad daylight. The only article of clothing that weren't bloodstained were her black Skechers sneakers, the brand of shoes she was wearing, deeply important to this story.
Why is the shoes always the most
important fucking thing with these fucking girl murderers?
I don't know.
Women be shopping. She slipped on her socks and shoes and called Jessie. Who the fuck's Jessie? Is that
Jessie's
the sister?
her little sister.
Is that the sister? Okay. And
Jesse Eisenberg.
told her she was okay. Jessie waited back at home for her sister to return. I like that I think this person's a Breaking Bad fan, considering one of the characters is called Jesse, and they made a reference to Walter White earlier.
And Margolis.
Oh yeah, Mark Margolis is an actor on that show. Also, Mary was waiting. Jessie immediately ran into her big sister's arms, gasping emotionally, giving her a big hug. Mary hugged both Jessie and Jessie and Jane, and gave her honey bunny a kiss on the lips.
Baby, I'm so glad you're okay. I was so worried.
Mary said, emotionally glad that Jane was all right.
I knew you would come back.
Jessie said through tears of joy. Of course I did, Jane replied, giving her little sister a hug, still emotional. Jeff has some competition. So many other criminals out there. Don't go to sleep. You won't wake up. Jane the killer is coming for you. Is that... No, she isn't? Like her mission is to kill Jeff the killer? I'm not Jeff the killer, so I'm not particularly worried.
I like how one of the categories is Mr. Angry
I would
Dog.
say this is stupider than the other Jane the Killer.
Yeah, this is actually worse. Just awful. Let's have a look at some of the comments. A fandom user says, much better than Jane Arkansas' story. That story was a load of shit. Yeah, I mean, if that's the yardstick you measure quality by, some of the replies, 50 shades of shit if you ask me.
No.
And Kayla15 says,
Fuck yeah, Jane Arkansas isn't even the real origin of Jane the Killer. Oh, and that goes for the Neverlasting too, in brackets, everlasting. Hashtag Jane the Killer rules.
The fuck does that sentence mean?
that comment was made in 2020.
Yep.
What the fuck?
Here's a comment from 2014, which is a more appropriate time to be making a comment about Jane the Killer. I realised the irony in me releasing a video about Jane the Killer in 2021. Scarlet66 says, I think this ... is just plain awesome. Her last name is Arkansas. This sucked. This was not a good story.
It isn't.
Predictably it was awful. They always are. That's kind of the point of the show. Sorry.
This is from JTK, so I'm assuming they're Jane the Killer, Jeff the Killer, Homicidal Lou, and Nina the Killer. No, it's not! That was the fan base! Listen to someone who's been with Creepypasta for the last 5 years.
Wow, so brave.
Been with Creepypasta as well.
Yeah. Well, they probably think that creepypastas are people,
Ah.
and they think they're in a polyamorous relationship with all the people in the in their username. So yeah, this sucked. Absolutely awful. Probably slightly worse than the other one, although not, as far as I'm aware, this one was not written by a neo-Nazi. So I guess it's got that going for it.
Yeah.
You know how somehow this is not as bad as the Anisian story, because that just seems to be going on and it just never stops. This had an ending, which is great, grateful for that. But why?
It does seem a breath of fresh air, versus like
we can actually end the story. It's just, why did they have to establish, Jacob, her nude about 5 times at the end there? Why did it have to get weird? It was weird anyway. Gross and weird, and I'm done with it. I feel abused.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
All right.